In order to paint and assemble all of my flowers, there are additional pieces of equipment that I need to have on hand. You'll notice that when I have my sugar flowers, each of the flower petals are individually wired. So it's super important that I have a pair of wire cutters on hand should I need to snip any of the wires should they get too long. When I'm assembling all of my pieces, I use Florist Tape. And Florist Tape is the same thing that they use for assembling real flowers, but we'll use them in order to put together the petals on our sugar flowers as well. When working with sugar flowers, it's super important to have on hand a little bit of powdered sugar. Powdered sugar is important. I load my fingertips up with it because gum paste has this gum arabic in it, something that's very sticky. So sometimes if my fingers are sticking too much of my dough, I'll put my fingertips into the powdered sugar so that they don't stick. One thing we also want to make sure we have on hand is some edible glue. Edible glue is made of a mixture of water and gum arabic. Gum arabic comes in a powdered form. If you don't have gum arabic on hand, you can always use a tiny bit of your gum paste because it has that gum arabic in there. You can just dissolve it into a little bit of water and that just makes it stickier. That will allow us to attach petals together and also to have our wires stick into our petals. In order to make them super realistic, I like to have some paint in order to pick up some highlights and shadows into our petals. So I like to make sure that I have a flat paintbrush. This will allow me to have a nice wide surface to brush on some dust. And then I also like to have smaller paintbrushes that are smaller in order to get into some of the little grooves that exist in our petals. And when we're painting them, most of the time we're using a petal dust. And petal dust has a consistency almost like a ground up chalk, and we are able to brush that straight onto our petals in order to give them a nice realistic look.